All right, let's jump right back in. Welcome to part 2 of our explainer, where we're continuing our deep dive into the really fascinating insights from the psychology of money. Today we're tackling segment 2, wealth versus riches. We're going to explore a core tension that honestly almost all of us struggle with, which is the massive difference between looking wealthy and actually being wealthy. It sounds like a super subtle distinction, right? But as we're about to see, mixing the two up is basically the root cause of countless terrible financial decisions.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to ask a pretty blunt question. Why do you want a Ferrari? Or, a massive house or a luxury watch? The author actually shares this brilliant story from back in the mid-2000s when he was working as a valet at a luxury hotel in Los Angeles. He was parking Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royces, the whole shebang, all day long. And like a lot of us, his absolute dream was to own one of those cars. Why? Well, because he thought it sent a powerful signal to the world. It says, hey, look at me. I'm smart, I'm rich, I've officially made it. But during those years as a valet, he realized something incredibly ironic. When someone drove up in a slick Ferrari, he totally gawked at the car, but he rarely, if ever, actually looked at the driver. He didn't care about the person behind the wheel at all.
And this perfectly captures what the author calls the man in the car paradox. It's absolutely mind-blowing when you think about it. You see, people want wealth to signal to everyone else that they should be liked and admired. But in reality, the people watching, they bypass admiring the wealthy person completely. Instead, they just use that person's wealth as a benchmark for their own desire to be liked and admired. When you see someone driving a really nice car, you don't think, wow, the person driving that car is so cool. You think, man, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. The drivers are buying these luxury items thinking it's going to bring them all this admiration, without realizing that the people on the street aren't giving the driver even a second thought. They're just imagining themselves sitting in the driver's seat. So if respect and admiration are your end goals, having expensive stuff almost never brings it. Frankly, humility, kindness, and empathy will get you so much more respect than horsepower ever will.
Which brings us right into section 1. Rich versus wealthy. The visible versus the hidden.
You know, we constantly toss around the words rich and wealthy like they mean the exact same thing, but they are completely different concepts, and not knowing the difference is exactly why so many people confuse a high income with true financial success. Think about it like this. Richness is entirely about current income, and it is highly, highly visible. If someone is driving a $100,000 car, they're almost certainly rich, because even if they bought that car with debt, you still need a certain level of income just to afford the monthly payment. It's really not hard to spot rich people. They usually go out of their way to make sure you know it. But wealth is totally hidden. It's income you haven't spent. It's an unspent option that sits there, offering you flexibility and the growth to maybe purchase more things later.
So here is the absolute crucial definition we really need to lock in. Wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see. It's literally the nice cars you didn't buy. It's the diamonds not bought. It's the first-class upgrades you said no thanks to. Because we rely so heavily on outward appearances to gauge financial success, the cars, the huge homes, the curated Instagram photos, we completely miss the reality of wealth. We can't see people's bank accounts. We can't see their retirement portfolios. We only see what they actively chose to spend their money on.
Okay, I have to share this anecdote because it just perfectly highlights how ridiculously easy it is to get this wrong. Consider the famous singer Rihanna. She actually nearly went bankrupt after massively overspending, and she ended up suing her financial advisor. And the advisor's legendary response is just too good. He said, was it really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money? You can laugh at that, but the crazy truth is, yes, people literally do need to be told that. When most people say, I really want to be a millionaire, what they actually mean is, I want to spend $1 million. And spending $1 million is literally the exact opposite of being a millionaire.
Let's go back to the author's days as a valet for a second. He tells this super vivid story about a regular customer. Let's just call him Roger. So Roger was young, and he drove this pristine, brand new Porsche. Naturally, everyone drew the obvious assumption. Roger is rich. Roger has totally made it. Then one day, Roger rolls up in this old, beat-up Honda. The exact same thing happens the next week. When someone finally asked what happened to the Porsche, Roger just casually mentioned it got repossessed because he defaulted on his car loan. Listen, Los Angeles is absolutely full of Rogers. The whole world is filled with people who look rich but are actually living on the razor's edge of insolvency. When you see someone driving a $100,000 car, the only actual data point you have about their wealth is that they have $100,000 less than they did before they bought the car.
There's this fantastic metaphor from the author Bill Bryson about diet and exercise that really hits the nail on the head here.
Losing weight is notoriously difficult, right? Because people tend to overestimate the calories they burn working out, and then they consume twice as many calories as a reward. Exercise is a lot like being rich. You think, hey, I did the work, I have the income, so I deserve to treat myself to a big meal or a fancy car. But wealth is turning down that treat meal so you actually burn the net calories. Keeping wealth requires massive, almost crazy self-control. It requires the restraint to turn down the reward you feel you've earned today just so you can keep your options open for tomorrow.
Moving on to Section 2, the social comparison trap, why expectations run out of control.
Now, this raises a really vital question. How much of our modern spending is driven purely by actual need, and how much is driven by status and just comparing ourselves to others? Think about this historical shift for a second. Back in the 1950s, the median American family income, adjusted for inflation, was around $29,000, and they lived in a home that was about 983 square feet. Fast forward to 2018, median wages had increased, sure, but not astronomically, yet the median American home completely exploded to 2,436 square feet. I mean, the average new American home today literally has more bathrooms than people living in it. This is massive lifestyle inflation. We've used our greater wealth over the decades just to buy bigger, better, and faster stuff, but we really have to ask, are we actually any happier for it?
A huge chunk of this lifestyle inflation basically boils down to who we're comparing ourselves to. In the 1950s, you compared yourself to your neighbors, who probably earned a pretty similar wage to you. But the internet completely changed the game. Social media is literally gasoline on a flame. It inflated our expectations to completely impossible standards, because now we are constantly exposed to top 1% of lifestyles globally. A bank manager today isn't just comparing himself to the other bank managers in town. He's being subtly influenced by the perfectly curated, incredibly luxurious lives of celebrities, influencers, and hedge fund managers on his feed. The ceiling of social comparison is now so unbelievably high that virtually no one can ever hit it.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, your ego versus income, the core debate of personal finance.
All of this constant social pressure creates a major internal conflict for us. We've all got these two opposing financial mindsets constantly battling it out in our heads. Let's call them the consumer and the investor. The consumer is sitting there arguing, hey, I work hard. Money is meant to be enjoyed today. Why even bother building wealth if I can't experience the fruits of my labor right now? But then the investor fires back with a really stark reality check. Excessive consumption delays true financial freedom. Every single dollar you spend to impress someone else today completely destroys a future option for yourself tomorrow. It's the ultimate tension, right? The desire to enjoy your hard-earned cash right now versus the harsh reality that showing off your money pretty much guarantees you're going to have less of it later.
And honestly, the best way to settle that debate is with this one brilliant definition. Savings is the gap between your ego and your income. Obviously, everyone needs the basics covered: food, shelter, a baseline level of comfort. But once you get past that relatively low level of basic needs, almost all spending is merely a reflection of our ego. It's just a way to spend money to show other people that you have money. When you start defining savings this way, you instantly realize why so many people with sky-high incomes manage to save so little. They are locked in a daily struggle to extend their peacock feathers to the absolute limit just to keep up with everyone else.
Okay, so how do we actually fix this? Walking through these 3 psychological steps pretty much gives us the answer. Step 1, you can save more if you spend less. Step 2, you can spend less if you desire less. And step 3, you will desire less if you care less about what others think of you. Notice something really important there? Increasing your savings doesn't actually require getting a massive pay raise at work. It simply requires an increase in humility. People who achieve enduring, long-term personal finance success usually have a very strong propensity to just not give a damn what other people think about them.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 4, the highest form of wealth, the ultimate payoff of saving. Because if wealth is what you don't spend, and if you're actively suppressing your ego to save money, there's got to be a payoff, right? What are we actually saving for? Well, this quote perfectly resolves our earlier debate. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Psychologists have consistently found that way more than your salary, more than the square footage of your house, and more than the prestige of your job title, having a strong sense of control over your own life is the most dependable predictor of positive well-being. The ultimate luxury purchase isn't a Ferrari. It is absolute, unadulterated control over your own time. All that unspent money, that hidden wealth we've been talking about, it pays totally invisible dividends. It gives you options. It gives you flexibility. It gives you the ability to patiently wait out a terrible job market, or the opportunity to pounce on a great investment when everyone else is strapped for cash. It gives you freedom from the sheer terror of living paycheck to paycheck. This unseen flexibility basically gives you the endurance to survive financial storms. Because when you don't have control over your time, you are forced to accept whatever bad luck the universe throws your way. Unspent wealth is your shield against that.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought to ponder about your own habits. Is your money buying you things, or is it buying you freedom? Every single time you choose to build hidden wealth instead of flaunting visible richness, you are taking a point in the future that would have belonged to an employer or a bank or a creditor, and you are taking it back for yourself. Wealth is what you don't see, but freedom is what you actually get to live. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep this question in the back of your mind the next time you're tempted to buy something just for the status, and I'll see you in the next one.